hi, Michael. So you live at the Lucerne Hotel, and thank you
Yes.
so much for speaking with us today. And I have a few questions for you. And we're socially distancing here, so you know. How did you end up at the Lucerne? How was your journey there?
There's two parts to that question, two answers. How I ended up at the Lucerne, and of course, how did I end up in the shelter in the first place, I think plays into that. But I ended up in the Lucerne because I was in the Washington Jefferson beforehand, and they had placed us there at the end of May due to the pandemic. They wanted to separate the men at these shelters because it was very tight quarters. It was dorm style where there would be upwards of about 40 men per floor, which was just one big open room with a bathroom, and like I said, dorm room style. So it was cubes with about 3 to 4 beds in each cube. Uncomfortable beds, I might add there. And so because of that, and because of such a large population, the place is full, there's guys waiting for beds every night, they moved us into hotels. And of course, in this time, businesses are losing money, and they sign deals and contracts, which I don't really know too much about, but of course, you know, they must have with the city, for economical reasons. But other than that, I benefited from it because I was moved into a one-man room. At the time, I was really struggling with staying clean, which is the reason why I'm in the shelter in the first place. I struggle with heroin addiction, also crack, cocaine addiction. I use needles. It's been a part of my life since I was 12 years old. And that's pretty much been my life journey between building myself as a human being and as a musician and having a drug addiction. And it's brought me places that I am not proud of. But I had some time clean, and I had started back with my music, and my life had become very, very good.
Great.
And
so let me just interject there because we are late.
Oh yes, that's right.
So once you got to the Lucerne, did they assign you a roommate, or did you guys have someone assigned?
Yeah, they assigned us a roommate. Well, that was the thing. I mean, I had my own room to begin with, and because of that, I got clean, and I wasn't around drugs no longer, which was big in the dorm. Guys using, in the bathrooms, in their bed, and selling it on site, and I could not stay clean for the life of me. And when I got my own room, because of certain circumstances, I decided not to associate myself with anybody and get clean. That was 3 months ago, and I haven't used since.
You have not used for 3 months?
Yeah, for 3 months. Yeah, I'm clean.
That's wonderful. That's so tough to do.
But they moved us to the Lucerne because their contract was up with that place. I don't know, but I do know that the Lucerne is much bigger and much nicer, and they moved all the remaining guys from Kenton Hall, which is on Bowery and 3rd, and the other Project Renewal shelter, 3rd Street, which is around the corner. They moved all those men, and then all of us from the Washington Jefferson to the Lucerne in like 2 or 3 days.
Wow.
And that's how we got there. And they did not tell us who our roommates were going to be. I was worried. I did not want to go into a room where a guy was going to be using in front of me and jeopardize my recovery.
Right.
And I had no say so. But I do believe that if that was the case and I went about it appropriately and said something, that somebody probably may have done something about it. But I didn't have to. My roommate's cool.
Good.
And he also, is in the same boat as me, where we know what's going on around here. We know that a lot of these guys, aren't getting the help that they need, and we don't want anything to do with that because our lives are getting better.
That is good. So that's good to know that you're facilitated to get clean on your own, basically, because you made the decision. So how safe do you feel in that building with all these people?
Safe. I mean, I feel safe. I mean,
Okay.
I have a lock on my door,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great. And now the next question. One of the main reasons this group was moved out of a shelter, like you said, to the Lucerne was to prevent COVID-19 spread and social distancing. Yet the community has witnessed groups of men, they're meeting on the median on 79th Street without wearing any masks. What are your thoughts about this?
Well, my thoughts is that if you turn on the news, there's people around the entire country that are getting together and throwing parties and stuff and not wearing masks.
You're right.
People are getting together on the streets, and because somebody looks a certain way or is because they're classified as homeless, now it's become a problem.
Right.
Now we're just going to pick at everything that we
used.
can.
Okay.
That doesn't even make sense because, nobody's doing it properly. Some people are, some people aren't. And it's not just the homeless people. Some of us homeless guys are keeping our distances.
Are there any active programs that help people individually, people with really bad addiction, like Gregory?
Yes, Project Renewal is a substance abuse shelter. They have their own outpatient program and crisis center located on 3rd Street, which is still operating. They only are not operating as a shelter right now. So the 3rd Street still has all the medical facilities, the psychiatric facility, the crisis center, and the outpatient, which you can sign up for, and it's really up to you to go.
Okay, great. The question is, have you observed any violence, criminal behavior inside or outside the Lucerne?
Not so much, no. What I've noticed, however, is that because of the shelter being a substance abuse shelter, there's a lot of guys that are dual diagnosed with also mental illness, and they're being overlooked by DHS, which I believe is doing this and throwing them into the substance abuse shelters because they have a drug problem when their mental health is the real problem, and those are the guys that are violent, have schizophrenia, talk to themselves, are quick to react.
So you find that drug addicted men should be separated from the ones that also have a mental disorder, because that's a whole other beast.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So they might pose a certain risk for you guys, for
yeah.
anybody also outside.
Yeah, it would, and it does, absolutely.
Right. And do you think having all these people who are still using, that could be a trigger for someone like you who's now clean and who's recovering?
Yes.
And how can you stay on your track?
Well, I mean, not being in a dorm setting house a lot and being in a hotel or in a setting where at least you have your own room or just a roommate, because now I have a choice whether or not I want to be around it. I mean, it's the same. Yes.
Okay. And some people say that you're not allowed to be inside the hotel during the day because they see people defecating and urinating outside. Is that the case, that there's certain times where you have to stay out? Or?
No, before the pandemic, at the previous dorm setting shelter, that was the rule, which I believe was in place because they don't want us laying around all day. We need to be out and looking for jobs or getting all documents in order, whatever it is. They want us to be out and motivated. But because of the pandemic and also because it is now a hotel that we're in, no, they don't enforce that. And I really highly doubt that the guys that are living in that hotel are defecating on the street.
Okay, it could be somebody else.
It's probably somebody else.
Okay.
And if it isn't, it's somebody with mental illness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, who else would defecate on the street?
Right. Have you, I don't know if you've if you've watched the media, the news media, and some of them, along with the community leaders, painted a picture that the Upper West Side community is overreacting, yet the community has witnessed property damage, harassment, illegal drug use and sale, unsanitary conditions, and acts of violence. And what are your thoughts? I know you've already answered some of this, but anything else to add to that?
I think if you distinguish the difference between reacting and overreacting, then perhaps they are overreacting. I mean, some of this stuff isn't anything new for this neighborhood. Since I was a kid, I've grown up with family on 72nd Street. I do know that park over there was once called Needle Park. But yeah, of course, with an influx of that behavior, there's going to be an influx of property damage and crime and all that. But to the extent that I think it should be blamed on just the fact that they moved homeless men to the shelters, I think is unfair and unreasonable. I think they should do more investigating and
Right,
find out the root cause of these problems, and not just point fingers at the first
And just
scapegoat
men.
you
It's
can.
always, you know, in all these hotels, it's all men. And why not some women and families? But maybe you cannot mix them up once, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that goes into it, and I think the underlying problem is what kind of men are they housing in these hotels? You know, they put a substance abuse shelter in there. It shouldn't be that bad, but I think the issue is with the mental health. I'm going to repeat it again.
Okay.
Those are the guys that are doing this kind of stuff, and they need the proper care, and they need to be in places where they cannot do those things, like a neighborhood like this.
That's a great point. And do you guys have a curfew? Do you have to
10
be...
o'clock, yes.
10 o'clock?
And anyone that says that they see guys coming in and out all night, well, it's because guys are coming in and waiting for a bed. Guys have jobs, and they're allowed with the proper documentation to come in depending on their work
Thank you.
schedule.
Okay.
And there's so many
That's a very good point.
aspects to it. Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like the Upper West Side community to know?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would have to say that there's better ways of solving problems. You know, if this is a problem for you, then go about it the right way. Don't just blame it on whatever you see on the streets. Because I know I'm not on the street. You know, I'm
Right,
doing the right thing, and I'm in the hotel, and there's plenty of other guys doing so as well. And you know, we're benefiting from this. And to say that it doesn't mean anything takes meaning away from my life.
Right. So what is going to happen in October? Do you have any idea? That's when they're either going to renew it or not?
I have no idea.
Okay, so
I
you don't know
did
in
hear.
terms of
I did
future-
look online, and
Right.
and that worries me because, you know, I am just a number at the end of the day, and a dollar sign, whatever you want to call it, you know, and knowing that I'm going to be placed somewhere else and then placed somewhere else, it sucks. You know, and that's why I'm trying really hard right now to get everything in order with my counselor to move on from this and go to the next stage before I'm thrown somewhere else.
So you do have a counselor who...
Yeah, and we're
helping you
working
so you can
on
get
permanent
real-
housing for me right now. I
Right.
already got everything together.
Okay,
And it was something that I was previously procrastinating on because of my addiction.
of course. And the last thing, if you had 3 wishes, what would they be?
3 wishes?
3 wishes, just something.
Oh.
If you don't have any, you know.
I mean, I guess I would wish for world peace.
That's a good one.
I would wish for everybody in the world to have a full stomach at the end of the night and a warm bed to sleep in. You know, because the feeling to not have that really sucks, and I've been there before. And I would also wish for health, for all the health and prosperity for my family.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with me, and I hope you
You're welcome.
rock it out with
Thanks
your
for having
music.
me. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks.
Appreciate it.